Don't know what time it is, what day it is. Welcome to Supernormal. Over to you, Rohan.
Right, welcome back to Talkaoke. Hope that wasn't too arduous a wait. I'm going to need to get everybody's names.
Thank you.
I'm going to need to replace batteries.
I'm Daniel.
You're Daniel.
I just wanted to pick up on a theme really about. We started talking about what was special about the festival, and I think there was something missed, which is really important. Was that there's an element of respect here. You were talking about people listening to this kind of way out music and stuff like that. That's going on in all the stages. But there's also, I noticed the way people treat each other, the way they are around the camping, the way they are around toilets, privacy, telephones, all that kind of stuff. There's respect, and that's a bit different to a lot of festivals and a lot of gatherings. And I think that makes it quite special.
But what makes that happen? I mean, is that the people, or is that the organisation? What's going on there?
It's part of that self-selecting that we were talking about. People who come here because they enjoy that environment, I suspect.
So you think better people select themselves to come here?
I wasn't judging them as better.
I think one of the things I noticed for me is I wasn't patted down on the way in. Haven't had to pay an exorbitant amount to come here. I haven't been kind of sneered at by the security guards on the door. I haven't had to struggle with anything. It's very easy, and that just makes a massive difference to the mood that you arrive in. Actually, is the fact that. But I was just wondering as well about the fact that this is a commune. It's around Brazier's house, isn't it, or hall, and. It still sounds a bit weird, but maybe it kind of imbues the whole thing with a different atmosphere to what you get. So if you went to Cornbury Park or something, where they're just there, they're just there to make money out of you, really.
Or if it was something in central London or something like that.
But I love central London, particularly the leaving of it.
Okay, Lorna, is it?
Yeah. How do you know that?
Because I have been here.
Oh, cool. Hey, what's your name?
Rowan.
Rowan.
I will get a round of names,
Nice
but
to
we're
meet
kind of on a roll here with this tangent.
You made me forget what I was going to say, so I'm going to...
Pass it to Vivian. Right. Vicky, sorry. So close.
So we're talking about that feeling of safety that we've all got, and that it's a self-selecting group, but it is a very small group here, and as you say, it's based on a commune. Lots of festivals start very, very small. Do you think that they then become a victim of their own success? Because I used to go to Glastonbury years and years ago, started off feeling very safe, that I could sleep in the woods. The last time I went, there was a gunfight. It was very, very rough. 1993, I think.
Yikes.
Yeah. Do you remember there was a shooting?
1993.
I can't remember exactly what year.
He was too fucked.
Yeah. I obviously was absolutely straight. But yes, that really. After that, I never went to Glastonbury again because I was too scared.
If we're losing Arthur.
Oh, okay,
Thomas.
Arthur. Thomas.
Here you go.
Basically, there's two guys who keep coming back, Arthur and Thomas.
Hello. My final words are just that this is really fun. I think just to listen to everyone's opinions, and I think it's quite good. Yeah.
It's a horrible question, but how old are you? Because
11.
how old? You're really cool.
Goodbye.
Cool, thank you very much. Well, let's take this opportunity to firstly applaud Thomas, but secondly, can I get a round of names for everyone so I can actually identify who people are and refer to people? So,
Jojo.
we've got Jojo,
Lauren.
Melvin,
Daniel,
Sarah,
Leah,
Poppy,
Leo,
Frank,
Lorna,
Vicky.
and Vicky. Thank you very much. So, Lorna, what were you about to
I was about to
say?
go back to the point of safety and this whole feeling of community, because I had a off-mic conversation with a guy that was sat here a minute ago. He went and he's in a band somewhere and he's gone. But he said, you're only feeling... He said something about gender and the fact that I was a woman feeling safe here. It's all about, it's just, I don't even know what he was meaning by it.
Was he saying you wouldn't get that at a different festival?
I think... Yeah. I think it was more like that. Don't kid yourself. Yeah, I think it was that because as I said before, I don't ever feel safe in the world, really, unfortunately. I'm working on it. But like coming here and being able to stay and go wherever by myself, stay in the woods by myself, like it's really special. And I don't know.
I think that's partly because it's small enough that you spend the weekend here and by the second day you're seeing loads of people that you know. It's small enough that you start to recognise people and groups of people, whereas in a bigger festival people have more anonymity, and that then enables them to commit crimes because there's no community watching. At other festivals you get tents stolen, whereas here we've all left our stuff and we're completely relaxed about it because there is that smaller community and people look out for each other.
So does that imply that it's just a size thing? I mean, the smaller festivals are better festivals, but it's inverse to how you'd expect.
Because I also wanted to bring back the point of everyone was saying, oh, there's no Tories here or anything, but actually in any kind of political group or anything, there's always bad people, no matter like where you place them. But like, how is it here that maybe actually some people here are very bad? I don't know. Are you? You seem pretty good.
Well, we're not going to admit to it.
Yeah.
You can come and take a seat and have a voice.
I should rephrase the question. But
Tom's kind of very involved.
We can't hear you because you're not on the microphone. If you want to air something, you have to come and sit down.
oh please, come on.
There we go. So what are you? We're all Tories, you said.
No, we're. Did you say Tories?
Tories. Oh, did you hear tourist?
No, I heard tourists.
Oh, right. Well, I mean, that's an interesting point there.
We are all tourists in life. Doesn't matter whether we live a mile down the road, does it?
Yes.
We've all got something to discover.
So you thought we were just bad-mouthing people who were here just for a laugh as opposed to wanting to really be here?
No, I didn't think anything.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, look, it doesn't matter where you come from. It's a journey. Everyone's on it. And this is part of it, and whoever they interact with here, it can be meaningful for them, if they're viewing it in an open-minded way. That's pretty well.
Go for it, Lorna.
Could you move up one? Because we've got...
Oh, there we go. That makes a bit more sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, there we go. I was going to ask you about because that guy really made me think about this whole gender thing. I totally forgotten my gender until he said something. And I don't know, I as a man, being here, compared to other big festivals and stuff, I'm just thinking of my brothers and everything, all the shit they get in, the bad stuff they get into.
Too late, you said it.
Yeah, I said it. Well, the shit they get into just for being a man. But because he was like, but you're a woman. I don't know. I'm really confused about what he said to me. I should probably get him back, shouldn't I?
Yeah. Well, you can get him later. I mean, he's in a band, so you can find him.
I'm probably not making any sense right now.
There's a gender identity issue here going on here.
Yeah. And then I think it's
No, the gender agenda.
There seems to be a gender identity issue, kind of, because you mentioned being a woman and how is it for men, but I think the experience is actually the same. Depends what mindset you come here with, I guess.
Yeah. I think
okay, I'll come to Melvin after Frank.
I think that guy was kind of doing that thing that people sometimes do where they kind of tell you how you're feeling. They say to you like, you're sad, and you're like, I'm not sad, and they go, but you are, and they're saying to you, you only feel safe, the only reason you feel more safe here is because you're a woman. It's like, no, it isn't. That's up to you. He has no right to...
He's got a problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's completely absurd to tell someone how they feel. It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, was that what he was doing? Was he?
I'm not sure that was what he was doing, and that's why I went him back because I'm really confused right now.
I mean, I think I heard him say he's reassured that you feel safe. Yeah. But maybe there's more than that. But let's hear what Melvin's.
I agree with what you said completely. I think people like to put people in boxes, and one big box that they like to put people on is a gender box. And then when people put you in a gender box, then they have all these expectations. And then when you feel like you're being put in a gender box or any type of box, you feel like you've got to respond in an appropriate way because so you get a response because somebody's put you in a box and they're wanting you to do a response, and you find yourself responding in a way that you're naturally might not even respond to simply because you've got that expectation.
Hang on, this is a topic that's come up quite a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's what does happen to her.
Playing up identities that other people give you.
Well, I think if you're aware that somebody's put you in a box and they have all these expectations, then there is that urge almost to respond to that in some way, whether you submit to it or whether you rebel against it. But it's there. It's like a wind blowing that's influencing you in a way that if you're not in a box or you haven't been categorised as anything, you're free to do whatever you feel like.
Okay, so if he hadn't said something to do with gender, you wouldn't have even contemplated it. You'd just been carried on thinking you were completely safe. Dan, you look like
I think it's Daniel. It's provocation. It's a very easy way of controlling an argument, is to provoke you and say something and put you in a box or force you into a position of dealing with his agenda instead of what you were talking about, which was something very positive. I thought it was a very negative response that you had.
Sorry, can I?
Yeah, go for it. But then let's put things up.
I don't necessarily think it's provocation. I think people feel safe when things are in boxes.
So true.
I think, and sort of like, so it's not done as a provocation. It's because that makes you feel safe. Yeah.
You don't reckon there's other reasons for somebody?
There's always other reasons.
I think why people feel safe when they put people in boxes is because they've identified something, and once they know what something is, then they don't have to worry about it so much, because they have all these preconceived ideas, like whether it's safe or dangerous, or if they know, okay, you're this, that, and the other, then like say, oh, chill out a bit. But if you totally have no idea what something is, like.
And so Sarah thinks.
Well, it's really important to recognise that we ping through life based on our stereotypes and our instantaneous unconscious judgments, our heuristics, and it's just his opinion. Doesn't mean to say it's true. And whatever your truth is for you, that's what is it. You will have had conscious or unconscious judgments about him as well, but they didn't come out of your mouth. I had judgments about him as soon as I.
Do you care to voice some of those with us?
I thought that's a stupid haircut, isn't it? But we all have those thoughts, and they're automatic and instantaneous. It's then whether it comes out my mouth or not, which is what has any kind of power. And the choice points that I have in my life, and the only thing I have any control over, going back to the conversation that was held 4 hours ago, is whether or not the thoughts that happen in my mind come out of my mouth. So it's just his opinion. Don't just allow him to be wrong, right?
I'm still kind of intrigued, because we're still unsure as to whether or not he said anything very divisive or just happened to make you think something.
He was actually being very kind in what he was saying. He was trying to be very positive, but it kind of made me question this whole thing of gender and stuff, and whether I was actually valid in what I was saying.
Okay.
But I think he didn't intend that to happen. It just kind of happened myself. I did that, I think.
Let's just introduce yourself as well.
I'm Tom.
Tom.
I don't think you have to accept the stereotypical label that someone tries to give you. We can understand how we might all do it and how he might have done it unconsciously even. But the question to everybody else is, how do you refuse to accept that stereotypical label without feeling bad about yourself or making them feel bad?
Respect. I think one of the things about this whole festival, and no offence, but everyone's sort of leaning towards the slightly alternative, weird category, right? And this whole thing about how people.
Oh, yeah. No, you're not. No, you're not.
This thing about how people feel safe when they identify others. I think the reason that those conflicts don't arise here is because you can't identify anyone. Everyone's so different here. I've seen punks, their heads are shaved and they're smiling. They look more like monks. And it's like what? Well,
They might have been monks.
But yeah.
Isn't it funny how you get both of those kind of crowds here, though?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. You can't make any judgments on anyone here. It's really difficult. Like, I see someone, like, they're wearing a denim jacket, and they've got all these patches, and I mean, there was a girl standing in front of me with like a backpack and just had black metal slogans on it. It's like "kill all humans," and I'm standing there and I'm like, does she actually think that?
Did you ask her?
No.
Why not?
I don't know, she was kind of really into the music, and I was like, don't really want to disturb that. And also, it's not great to question someone about that kind of stuff. But it's like, when I'm seeing her with this thing that says, kill all humans, and she's like grooving and smiling, and she's really happy, I can't So I can't make a judgment of her.
But
she's just a person like everyone else in that crowd.
Before you saw her bopping along to the music, you must have seen her patch, and that kind of drew you to sort of observe her as a person.
Yeah, but
were you thinking anything before, and then after seeing her actually just kind of enjoying herself? Were you making any judgment there, which maybe wasn't vocal, but was still real?
No, not really. It was completely observational. It was just kind of kill humans. I was like, okay, that's different. But it wasn't a kind of that's bad or that's good thing, because for some reason that just doesn't come into my mind here. I don't see people and go like, they look like a good person or they look like a bad one. Everyone just seems equally kind of morally meh.
Leo.
I was standing next to Frank when we were observing the backpack, and the first thing I said to him is, "Oh, that's like our friend George, who thinks that." We had a laugh, and then. But it's like the backpack wasn't the first thing I noticed. I was just like, well, these people are having a good time. Oh, they happen to say kill humans on the backpack. I'll make a funny joke to Frank.
And it then became part of something a bit more conscious, a bit more analytical. What other kinds of interesting people have you seen here that you haven't seen elsewhere? There's people who have. This is like your first festival.
Yeah.
Yeah. What?
I've seen people like with dyed hair, with their hair dyed like blue and green in bikinis.
That's something you haven't seen in Buckinghamshire?
Yeah.
Right.
And then people
So you
going
have been
like
listening?
all black and hot pants and stuff.
Yeah.
Bold and everything, so yeah.
You haven't spent much time in the capital then?
I just want to get this question on the microphone.
What do we mean by supernormal? Has anyone any idea what that's all about, what it might mean?
Yeah, that's a fair point. What are people's takes on what the actual name of the festival might mean or entail? Like, what does supernormal actually mean? Lauren, what do you reckon?
It might mean a bit like extraordinary, which is extraordinary, which means not ordinary. So supernormal might be not normal.
Does that make sense? I mean, Sarah, what you just
I think like superhuman.
Yeah.
But it could also be the two words, like just superhumans.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Tom knows the everyone's normal.
Tom knows the
yes, apparently Tom knows.
What's your opinion?
What do you think supernormal means? Or what does supernormal mean to you?
What it means to me is my grandfather wrote about it, and it's a long story.
So is a concept that exists outside of this festival? This festival's picked up the word from elsewhere.
It's picked it up from Braziers. It's a core theme of the Braziers community and the conscious social experiment, and it's about creating that individual who's supernormal. One person who's identified as supernormal is Jesus Christ, for example. So that might give you a starting point, but it is a complex thing to discuss in a short.
Can you give it in a nutshell, though? Because it still didn't really elaborate on what.
It's about individuals who can think on an emotional and logical basis at the same time, be accepting of other people, be connected to other people, acknowledging a gregarious nature in mankind that wants to be cooperative and get on with each other, and that's what gives us a sense of self and our wholeness, and how to live a life whole by integrating aspects of our own personality into a single thing. Something that with congruity, basically, if that makes any sense. So there's a personal integration as well as a community integration.
People.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, does that reflect people's observation of people here, that everyone kind of seems intelligent and kind of a bit out there and a bit, just a bit loving as well, a bit caring? Like,
Yeah.
There's no real assholes here, really.
No.
It's all good people.
There's not many at all. Oh, hello. Wasn't expecting that. My opinion of everyone here.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Not just the table. I mean, obviously everyone around the table is
Yeah. I mean, everyone here, right here, is absolutely amazing. But everyone I've encountered in the rest of the festival, they've just been like, not like non-judgmental of why I'm here. And that's something I've only like experienced one other time in my life, and it was on this like on the top of this mountain in Switzerland, on a Sufi camp, which Zenith Sufi camp. You've been there? No.
Tell us what this is. This is unfamiliar to me.
Oh, this is it was like a meditation camp.
Right.
Sufism is like the spiritual essence of Islam,
Okay.
but without all the religious stuff, which I don't agree with. It was in Switzerland.
Oh, sorry. You said.
Yeah. And it was absolutely beautiful, and I'd never experienced.
You of this.
Yeah, and it was just this weird feeling of. No, I was only aware of it once I'd been there and been here. That everywhere else I go, I kind of get this feeling that people are like, kind of try to suss you out and why you're there and trying to. But here, I don't have that at all. It's not one of those places. It's very special. I don't know. Anyway.
Good. Thank you.
I think it's just the open-mindedness that people are just willing to accept. To me, it's not about how crazy or eccentric or weird they are, but just that they're accepting of other people no matter what they look like, you know. So people just look like how they want to look like.
And everyone can witness. They just
Yeah.
witness.
And everyone's allowed to.
I kind of want to say that it's interesting, especially when people are kind of doing practices like, say, Buddhism, what you said about a strand of Islam which kind of denounces the religious aspect but kind of nourishes the spiritual one. Some of my friends are Buddhists, and I remember them saying like that's apropos people judging. They said, oh, we're going to this like silent retreat, and we really I really feel like I'm getting a lot out of it, and then but when I come to London, it feels like people haven't woken up. They walk around like they've got their eyes closed, sleepwalking. And I'm like, wow, that's quite an interesting observation that you've got there after being enlightened, and you're like judging other people. Because to me, who hasn't done what he's done, the silent retreat, he seemed to me like he's out of this world in this kind of like really odd way, so like not really connecting to reality. So I find that quite interesting. He was very self-righteous, like, oh, these people, they aren't woken up yet. I'm like, oh wow.
And do you agree with that view though, that he's right, that everyone's just walking around sleepwalking?
That may be, but I don't think that just because you went to a silent retreat and you happen to be interested in Buddhism, that gives you an insight into this. You know, I think we are kind of awake and asleep in the same kind of way.
So you think this silent retreat was a bit more self-righteous than this Sufi retreat, which was very open, like this festival is.
Like I kind of want to
come to Frank.
Yeah, I'm just. I think what Lorna, you were saying, like this is more of an open, non-judgmental kind of environment as opposed to maybe. Is that what you're saying? Like on the top of the mountain, people kind of.
Let's just hear briefly from you.
It was just a really bizarre awareness I had that I hadn't experienced this feeling of being totally not judged for being where I was or being how I was, and I was until that point I was totally unaware that I was having that all of the time and processing it subconsciously. And then I was there and I was like, what? Yeah, I was just like, what is, no one is, they're just accepting, they just witness, they're just, yeah, okay, you're here, like, yeah.
What do you mean by witness?
I mean by witness is, they don't put all of their shit onto you.
Yeah.
They don't project it all. They just see.
People are just a bit more complacent. They're just
not complete. They're very much aware.
Let me just come
they're
to
very
Frank
there.
because he's had his hand up and I want to hear what he has to say.
I think that it's a lot of people talk about coexistence and kind of being an ecology and working together and things, but I think another huge part of that is actually just being able to be around each other and kind of be able to deal with that. And I think that a lot of people can't, because you hear a lot of people complaining about like commuting to work, and it's just a load of people standing in a train not talking to each other, and that still blows my mind, because it's like you're a sentient human being. You can turn around to the person next to you and have like a fully fledged conversation, and you're just choosing not to. Why?
Well, why? I mean, I'll ask you that. Like, do you take a train ever, or a bus, or and I'll come to Margot after coming to Sarah. But
yeah, I take a train every morning to get to school.
And do you talk to the people around you?
Well, this is the thing. Like sometimes I will, you know, someone will look up from their paper and we'll kind of have that awkward eye contact moment, and I'll just be like hi, and then they'll just kind of go hi and look back down.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I guess that's not happening.
How does that make you feel?
Well, it's It really depends how I'm feeling anyway. Like, if I'm in an upset mindset, then it makes me feel all rejected and stuff. And if I'm kind of feeling a bit absurdist, I just kind of go, ha, you missed out on a bad conversation.
Wait a minute, don't put yourself down. Let's, Sarah, you had your hand up a second ago. What were you
So I think this thing about thinking that people aren't judging you
Yeah.
is probably more likely to be the fact that we've stopped judging other people. And I'm going to leave that there. But I've spent time on silent retreats, and I tell you what, you don't stop judging people. You've just got no company but your own stupid thoughts for a week. Also, not a lot of fun.
Does this sound like heaven or hell to people?
It is. It's like mindfulness boot camp. I'm not saying it's great at all. But also, I used to commute up to town every day, and I didn't want to start a conversation with people for fear of the fact they'd want to talk to you every day for the rest of your life.
I am kind of curious though. So, like these silent retreats, has come up a couple of times with different people, and you said it sounds like it was just hell. You didn't like being in yourself, but like I'm kind of curious to know if anyone did enjoy it. So it sounds like we've got somebody who did enjoy being on a retreat. Well, was it a silent retreat? No. Okay, that one wasn't a silent retreat. But does that idea appeal to people?
I think it does romantic.
I think people have just kind of, because I agree with what Frank said, made me think of it. I don't think there's a one template of reading commuters on London Underground.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's the kind of, when you have an eye contact and you feel.
Let's get a final thought off you.
I love your hat, by the way. You look like a cabbage head. Hello, cabbage. Cabbage Tom, come and take a seat. We're talking about your hat right now. That's amazing. Tom needs to go.
We need to get a final thought from Tom, but then Cabbage Hat can come.
I'm just going to finish. Just hang about. But what I was going to say is that there isn't one way of reading your fellow commuter. You have to make the eye contact and don't kind of pretend that you're not feeling connection. I think people are very good in masking the connection they may have, because I think people are just too afraid to think that it may lead them to a full-blown conversation. It doesn't sometimes have to. All you have to do is like acknowledge the other person and be like, we're just having a little, hey, how's it going? That's it. And you know the feeling when people are ignoring you, like you see them in town. Hi Tom. You see them in town and they're ignoring you. And I figured out that they are just worried that if I clock them and they clock me, then they're obliged to have a conversation. You don't. You aren't. You just have to say hello. That's it. That's all there is. And I think people are just too kind of immobilised.
Is this peculiar to British society, I wonder, or elsewhere? So are we getting final thoughts of Tom?
Yes, I wanted to leave you with a final question of what do we mean by witness, because Lorna talked about witness, which I think is more than just observation. I think it's about understanding how someone sees me as an individual, and that I can only understand myself through other people and that connection with other people and what they tell me about myself. And without other people, we don't have an existence or an identity of self, basically. So I think witness is a very important part of communication.
Okay, Melvin.
I think I'm going to disagree with you completely and utterly. Yes, I think yeah. When you were talking about all of the judgments and stuff that go on in your head constantly about everything, and sort of like your thought processes are coming from a place where you're putting things in a hierarchy and judging, and that's eating at you and rattling at you all the time. And so when you're left alone with yourself, then you hear that part of yourself that's going on that. Well, with witnessing, it's like lots of people talk about being in a moment and just being there and seeing. It's not interpreting or stuff. It's just witnessing. It's just seeing it. It's just looking, and it's like, oh, there's a thing, and it's nothing more than there's a bottle there. It's not like, oh, it's a bottle. It's a blue bottle. It's from this shop. It's just witnessing. It's just like like being in a moment. It's just.
Lauren and Jay, can we get some final thoughts before you scamper off?
Yeah.
Are you going to be back in a bit? Well, there we go. Okay, brilliant.
So I would say that when you were talking about witnessing, it seemed like there was lots of thoughts going on and and interpretations taking you away from simply the experience of
Yeah, I'm talking about a non-judgmental way. I think I guess you're probably right, actually. I'm trying to go beyond that and say, well, what's the point of witness? there's got to be something constructive out of witness.
Okay, we're getting very abstract here as well. I mean, what's Frank? Let's come to you and see what see if we bring it down to earth a bit more.
I don't want to throw a curveball, but what I just noticed there, right, was a thing of miscommunication, and it's a massive problem with us as human beings. When one person says witness and they define it in their head as this, another person says witness and they define it in their head as something else, and then they try to both use that same word, you instantly have a clash. How do we solve that problem? Don't get me to answer that, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's come up quite a lot today, actually. Melvin,
I can't resist responding to that, because when I first arrived, then there were people there. When you were first entering, there was a whole group of people that were saying, "We're going to give you helpful advice that will help you change your life. What advice do you want for your life to help change your life?" And so I just couldn't resist going, "My wardrobe is clashing orange and red." Basically, it was just like I could not resist that. Really.
Tom, so we've got there's a couple of free chairs if people who are standing feel like coming to sit down. And look, there we go.
Before you
a couple
go,
of levers as well.
before he goes,
there we go. Some free chairs. Come, cheers for joining us, Leo.
Think what Leo thinks about my.
I wanted.
What do people think of Mikey's wardrobe?
Comment on what that.
Should we say this could be an entire dialogue in itself? I mean,
just wanted to comment on what that young man said, I wanted him to hear before he left, but never mind. Which is, I can encapsulate what he says in Love and Do What You Will, which is an occult kind of what's the book called? I can't remember. No, not the Bible.
Necronomicon?
No, it's the
Wikipedia.
Yeah. That's all of that stuff. The occultist, Aleister Crowley.
Okay.
Love and Do What You Will, and it's often misinterpreted as well, because if you truly love, you can't really do anything. It doesn't mean do anything. It means, but you can do what you want, as long as you're doing it through a loving heart. I'd like to ask Alan, who's joined us, what do you mean? Could you give a definition? No, but you're about to.
Give it a definition of love and do what you will.
No. Have you got a definition of witness? What do you understand by witness?
Well, let's also. Leona had her hand up, and I kind of wanted to know what she was going to say first, but then I'll come to Alan.
I was gonna respond to something
that Leo said.
Leo. Yeah. About live and don't hurt anyone.
Yeah, that is the credo. Love and do what you will.
Yeah, but I think in order to take care of yourself, you've got to in a way be selfish, and that might, like in a short-term thing, actually hurt other people, and I think that's okay. You're gonna end up hurting other people to make what's right I can't even. I wish I had the words. I could paint you a picture of this, but I can't.
Also, how do you say it again? What was it? Love and
don't hurt anyone.
Don't hurt anyone. But how do you practically achieve that in life? I mean, yeah.
Well, there could be an example. Say that you're in a relationship and you want to end it, the other person doesn't. It's better for you to end it. It's better for them, maybe, but they'll feel very hurt, nevertheless. So therefore, you are going to end up hurting people, even just living your life.
Well, yeah, even on a day-to-day basis, we're hurting by just using plastic and whatnot.
It's like when someone asks you to do something and you don't want to say no because you think it will hurt them, but you do it just to please them. But in the end, you feel like you're wasting your time and you don't want to be there, you don't want to do it. So it's just like that, yeah. Say no to please yourself and just, yeah.
Okay. So sometimes kind of abstaining from decisions actually helps you and others as well.
I think that maybe the phrase would be better if you replaced hurt with scar. I think that...
Okay, interesting.
I think
changing the kind of the temporal context here. But okay.
I think that hurting people is unfortunately somewhat inevitable, especially with things like relationships existing. It's just going to happen. There's going to be heartbreak. Scarring people, affecting someone for the rest of their life, there's a lot more thought into that. You have a lot more power over yourself to not do that. And so I think that maybe instead of saying, love and do what you will, it's kind of I've completely lost my train of thought. What did Leo say originally?
He said about not hurting anyone.
Right, yeah. So live your life without
anyone.
hurting people. But you
Don't
think it's
scar
more about not hurting, but more about scarring. So
Yeah.
you can hurt someone in the short term, but at the long term, as long as it's for their benefit.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I like where this is going.
What was your Leah? That was it. Hey, I was going to say carry on from your point of saying no, and it's like a lesson I've been trying to learn for a very long time, just from my traditional upbringing of my mum, never saying no ever, and my dad like being the one, all that jazz. And I've only just started to actually be able to say no, and it is the most important lesson I think to learn. And yeah, that's going to hurt people short term, but actually in the long term, if you can learn to say no, you're going to do so much more good. And there's so much more stuff. I'm really bad at talking. So.
Well, are there any concrete examples here? I mean, what is it about being honest if someone says, hey, how you doing? Instead of everyone just saying, oh, I'm good, thanks. Maybe being a bit more honest
I don't mean
there,
about
or?
that.
Right, okay.
I don't think everyone should put their shit on everyone else all the time. I don't. Like, if someone's just like, all right, mate, how you doing? You shouldn't be like, oh, well, I mean, sometimes that's not the right moment, and they're not actually asking for that. But I'm meaning situations where someone's asking quite a lot of you, and you know in yourself that if you give it to them, you're going to be broken. But you want to avoid the hurt that you inflict upon them through saying no. And it's such a hard. I found it almost impossible to learn how to do. And I've hardly ever said no, and it's just damaged me like fucking loads.
So it's a benefit to learn to say no.
Yeah.
Okay. Mikey.
I know. A friend of mine was just saying, I was going out with this guy and he wanted to have sex, and I just didn't want to do it, but I did it anyway just because I felt like I should. And I was like, well, why? That just doesn't make any sense to me. Why you actually did it, even if you didn't want to do it. And it wasn't like she didn't like the guy, but she just. It wasn't. I don't know. She wasn't feeling it. I don't know. So she did it anyway. So I find to be quite bizarre.
But is this because of some gender divide? We can't understand what it is to say no because we never actually would say no as guys. I don't know. What's that?
No, I think I know. Basically, no. I think sort of like there's lots of social pressures. There's lots of social things, and especially in our society, the idea of women being compelled to do lots of things, that's very very fashionable thing. But a lot of the time you can't not feel what you feel. So if you don't want to do something, and if you do want to say no and don't say no, your actions will say no, and that frustration that you'll feel will say no, or that annoyance that you'll feel will say no, or it's not hurt.
So it's not loud enough to just act.
Sorry, I'm not being clear. The point I'm making is that you can either say no straight away, but if you don't say no straight away, then you'll still be saying no, but it won't be hurt because you haven't said it, and it will come out in that frustration, it will come out in that anger, it will come out in all of those other emotions. So and confusing because you haven't said no. It's like, why are you so angry at me for doing this?
But it might come retrospectively when the kind of the damage has already been done. No?
Sorry, retrospectively when...
Well, so you're saying like if someone doesn't say no directly, their actions might speak, but that action might happen after they've already slept with somebody, in which case it's retrospective.
I'm saying if the no's there. If you don't want to do something, you don't want to do something, and that's your truth. And whether you vocalise it at that point and say it, that's one way of saying it. It might be a more cleaner way of doing it. But if you don't say it, then you'll feel that frustration, you'll feel that anger, you'll feel that not trueness. You feel it. It's the no's still there. Whether you say it's sort of like it is. You feel what you feel. It is what it is.
Yeah, it's regret in a way, I guess, or something like that.
Can I say something about saying no and no one hearing you? Actually saying it, because I've been raped twice, so saying no is having to relearn that. Sorry, I don't know why I've said this. I'm gonna cry.
Feel free to share.
Fuck. But learning how to say no again, it's like how it didn't work. So how do I reclaim that? How do I like get this back? You know, like.
Because when there's a
Sorry.
power, no, don't worry. There's a power
I think
dynamic.
I think it's learning that some people don't want to see you or hear you and won't respect you and don't have your best interests at heart at all. But there's lots of other people that will see you and will hear you and do have your best interests at heart. And there are people that you can't trust and it's dangerous for you to be around, and that's not a good idea. But there's other people that it's good for you to be around, and they'll give you energy and they'll help you and they'll see you and they'll affirm whatever you're feeling, whether it's or what you're expressing, whether it's an uncomfortable or unpleasant feeling or not. That there's both types of people out there, and that they find it perfectly acceptable to say, yeah. That people find it perfectly acceptable to say no.
That's all right. You just seem like you need a bit of a hug.
Yeah, take your time. Have a hug. There we go.
One of the things.
Yeah, please.
One of the things about this forum is that we can say things and everyone listens to us, whereas that's definitely not always the case. Sometimes you can say no as loudly as you want and no one listens.
Yeah.
So that's what's lovely about it here. I'm going to change the subject now.
Thank you.
So, communication. Here, everyone's listening to us, everyone's communicating. We were talking earlier about Jeremy Corbyn, and everyone was saying how much they support him, and I'm the one saying, I'm not sure I support him. So is that because I'm worried that I don't get what he's saying? Because I'm the sort of person that would normally be on his side. But I think he's not an effective communicator. So if he's not communicating to me, how would he lead the country? And
that's you feel it's important that they're a communicator rather than something else.
Politicians, okay, prime ministers are not leaders. That is not what democracy is, and it's a completely. We've been brainwashed to think that prime ministers and presidents are leaders. They're not. They're representatives. Their job is to represent what you want, right? So
maybe someone who's not very good at communicating would actually do well to represent a nation that isn't very good at communicating.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying that Corbyn is great. I'm kind of going on a different thing. I'm just saying that looking at it as a thing of he wouldn't be a very good leader doesn't make much sense, because that's not his job. If he was Prime Minister, his job description is not leader, it's representative. He's meant to represent what the public want. He's not meant to tell them what to do.
Mikey.
I think the reason why he's perceived as a bad communicator is because he doesn't have the normal outlets that most mainstream politicians have, because most of the media is seeking to distort what he's saying. And I clicked on Jeremy Corbyn Facebook page, and apparently 14 million people have viewed his Facebook page, which I found to be completely astounding. And it kind of shows a sort of like a weakness of the mass media, that actually people are not necessarily sort of like picking up on those channels. But in my mind, I see those as they're scratching their heads trying to think, how can we stop Jeremy Corbyn? How can we distort his message? And they're just desperate to find something that he's not good at. And at the moment, he's not a good leader because he can't communicate. And I personally think he can communicate. From his Facebook page, the communication seems pretty good.
I'll be curious to hear Vicky. Yeah, Vicky's come back on that. But let's first, also, can we get your name as well?
It's Harry.
Harry. And what's your name? Because you're in a new face as well. Zach. Harry and Zach, cool. So Harry, what's your thoughts on this?
So what he was saying just then, it's quite true. Like, for example, a certain point was when during his Jeremy Corbyn's campaign was they focused solely on the point of he said friends towards the Palestinians. Very much, and they just focused on that point so precisely, just because he called them friends, not going more broadly on the whole range of his ideas and so on. I mean, personally, I like Jeremy Corbyn, but there are some things I don't necessarily agree with. But that's what you get with every leader. You don't 100% agree with everybody. It's just that it's also a mass media, to what you were saying, like that whole mass media idea, and how they portray certain people. You know, he's not the typical politician in current times right now. It's very much a sort of like populist type ideal. So like you see in America, Bernie Sanders, very much like he's not the normal candidate. And then the opposite end of it, so you see Donald Trump, all those types of like candidates, much more, they're different from the mainstream politician ideal. Like that.
Okay, but so what are you saying there? So he's. You agree that he's not a good communicator, but that shouldn't matter because he still represents some movement that's happening.
He represents like a large portion of the population who are fed up with the normal.
Yeah, and so is that more important than his ability to communicate? But you think his ability to communicate is quite, quite pivotal there. Hang on, wait, let's hear from Vicky first.
So yes, the fact that he can't communicate with me, someone who would naturally be his.
But when you say that, what do you mean when you say he can't communicate with you? Have you had a conversation with him, and that's what?
I don't understand what his policies are, what he would change. I don't know if that's because his ideas are more complex than the normal politician, and so they can't be. You can't just have a soundbite because we have so many politicians that just deal in sound bites.
Basically, you're comparing him to other politicians and saying he has a problem because of something you're comparing to other politicians with.
Possibly, but he has to exist in the same world as everyone else. Yeah. He is, whether he likes it or not, competing with other politicians.
Yeah.
So that's my concern, really.
Okay, Dixie, let's. I remembered your name.
Yeah, it's following from both. I'd like to say it's the whole point about leadership is what you class as leadership, and I think yes, you've got the soundbite idea of leadership, which has put us into a situation at the moment I think is just not very good. I'd say with Corbyn, I think it's a different sort of leadership, and it's a leadership that is more in tune with most people. I think the world has gone so right at the moment that it needs to go a bit left to balance itself, and I think people are used to the ideas. I think the whole thing about Jeremy Corbyn can't communicate and he can't lead, I think they're red herrings, because he obviously can communicate, because there's lots of people have been mobilised because of him. It's just communicating in a different way that we're used to, because for the last 20-30 years we've got sort of newspaper communication.
Yeah, so it's different channels, and he's not using the channels that we're normally used to.
And I think that's all it is.
But okay, well, what's Frank, as someone who's kind of representative of the younger generation, how does Jeremy Corbyn sort of speak to you then? Does he communicate with you, or?
Politically, I'm kind of lost a lot of the time. I firmly believed in socialism until very recently, and I'm kind of anarchisty. I think.
Okay, well, yeah. Okay. For a second there, I thought you were going to go off in the opposite direction. Okay, right.
I think the thing is, with politicians, right? What got me into the whole socialist idea is I read something where someone was saying that they're just people. So why can't the people lead the people, sort of thing, right? Which I think is a really nice idea, and I still believe in it, just in a slightly different way, because I think that these politicians are actually unfairly elevated above people. What we don't know and what we aren't kind of informed of is who these politicians are actually representing, right? Because if they were made to tell us who was behind them and backing them, because you've got all the mega companies that are telling them what to say. They're puppets.
Okay, but let's Harry? Zach. You Harry. Yeah. Okay.
This guy, Jeremy Corbyn?
That's the one.
Who is he?
Do we need someone to... Leona, let's just get a final thought, and then we can get someone to summarise Jeremy Corbyn and his...
I just want to really thank you all, because you've been great, and really
And we want to thank you. Thank you for coming, thank you for sharing, thank you for being one of us.
Okay.
Round of applause. Does anyone want to summarise Jeremy Corbyn in a nutshell?
It's just a guy, somehow he became a Labour MP. He's just a guy that stands up for what he believes in.
He's been a Labour MP for 40 years.
He's been a Labour MP for 40 years, but he's never actually voted. One reason why the newspapers are having a go at him is because if, say, for example, Labour wanted to invade Iraq, their leadership did, and he felt it was wrong, he would vote against it, despite being a member of MP of the Labour Party. Or, for example, say they wanted to cut benefits, he voted against it, or raise tuition fees, he voted against it. So he's not been he's been more loyal to his ideas and his sense of what is right than what is kind of seems to be expedient at the moment.
So he hasn't played ball.
And that's the reason why the powers that be fear him is because he can't be bought. That's why they like Owen Smith, because Owen Smith can be bought and he can be persuaded to vote for the interests of big business. Whereas Jeremy Corbyn is just going to vote for or just make the decision based on his own conscience.
Zach, does that answer your question, or were you playing devil's advocate? I can't quite tell.
That does answer my question.
Cool.
He's
Come and grab a seat, Dixie. Yes, there we go.
Jeremy Corbyn is my
sit down.
I'm just having oops. Is my sister-in-law, not by marriage, but almost. He's a local. My sister-in-law's local MP.
Oh right. Okay.
Basically.
I was going to say. I mean, I did want to kind of open it up to gender politics again at some point, but maybe not through that avenue.
No, he's my sister-in-law's local MP.
Gotcha. Well,
So-
where is that for?
So for years she has been going to Jeremy Corbyn and going, and he's going, yeah, and he's just he does what he says on the tin, basically.
Right.
Yeah. It's basically he's a bloke that does what people need to do because he cares, which is good, and that's all I can say. And yeah,
what is that? Yeah, I love some of that.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Dixie. Do you want to give us that? I guess that kind of was your final thought, but
That was my. I'm just like.
That's a funny idea, though. Like that MP is a long-distance member of the family type thing.
Yeah.
I think the biggest problem with politics is alienation between.
We're just gonna get. Okay. Sorry, Zach. Continue.
No, we're not going to dinner yet.
Okay,
it's not dinner time.
The very process of representative democracy involves alienation between the electorate and the politicians themselves. And that kind of inherently means they're never quite going to fully represent anybody. And all they can really do is go with their gut, in a sense.
I mean, this furthers what Frank was getting at about how, then in which case there's no point having elected leaders if they're just ordinary people. Margot, with the interesting accoutrements here.
Apropos people going with gut feeling, I think that was very much the case with people voting leave in the referendum. I don't mean to bring it back to the referendum, but I think very often people think that they are experts on a political subject which is much more complex than just I feel it this way, therefore it's valid because I'm feeling it. I think what people are underestimating is the sense of, you have to do a little bit of research. And yes, it hurts. Yes, that means you have to buy books or read more articles on Google, whatever, the news page or whatever. But I think, casting an emotional vote, that can be quite damaging. We all feel emotions. In a sense, what's wrong with that? But I think emotions can also be manipulated by politics.
But isn't everything an emotional vote when you get down to it? Melvin, I'll come to you in a second. I just want to hear from Frank.
This is the kind of major issue with the anarcho-syndicism ideal, because the idea is we work our own politics, and what's nice about it is that as an ideal it's non-utopian. So unlike something like socialism, it doesn't say this is the system and this is how it stays. It can morph, it can change, right? But for it to do that, everyone has to be completely clued in to what their actions do and the effects that they have. And the way society has gone, we've gone into a bit of a corner where we're much less considerate about what our actions mean and how they affect other people.
That sounds very mechanistic, though. If everyone has to know exactly what their consequences their actions are going to have.
I think I'm kind of agreeing with both of you. I think nowadays people need to research a lot more because the traditional medias, you know that they can't be trusted. You know that what you're going to hear on television has been bought. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and that's saying a lie. And you know you've got to research for yourself. And with the EU and the Brexit stuff, the biggest Google search the next day people were saying was, "What is the EU?"
Mm-hmm.
And sort of so the times now, it's so if you come across somebody, I think one of the things with Corbyn, lots of people trust him and think that he's what he is. Well, most politicians I wouldn't trust for anything.
All right, let's hear from Mikey, then Frank and Harry, and then Margot.
I mean, there's nothing. People have got an expectation of you that you're going to be kind and you're going to be compassionate, possibly give to charity, help in the community. All of these things are kind of social expectations that people have. But I think there should also be a social expectation to actually do your research and find out, what the fuck is going on.
But
and
how do you hold people to that, though?
You don't hold people to it. You just expect them to do it.
But then that doesn't change anything, surely. It was let's hear from Vicky and then I'll come to Harry.
So you're saying that you've got an expectation that everyone gets very involved in what's going on, but actually the world is incredibly complex, and if every one of us takes an interest in every single political issue going on throughout the world, we'd never get anything done. And what I want to find a leader who I can trust, who I can believe in, who I can vote for, who will make decisions on my behalf without me having to get completely involved in them. I want someone that I can trust to do the right thing.
So you're not quite.
I'm waiting to be convinced. I want to be convinced.
So you're not quite the anarcho-syndicalist as your son. Harry. Yes.
And that's what leads to what you were saying, a representative of your ideals and your beliefs. But it is down to your electorate also to actually find that information out for yourself, because what you were saying also, you can't find that information on mainstream news. You actually have to. Fortunately, we have the internet, but it's so much clutter as well. You actually have to seek that information out for yourself and actually explore what you find. Like, you may feel so instinctively believed on one ideal, but it can be completely flipped over when you actually find the real facts and truth about that. And I'll say it again, when you go back and with a lot of populist candidates right now, because people are so sick to death with the status quo when it comes to elections, when it comes to the voting system, they are looking for someone who is just spouting out ideas non-stop, right, left, and I'm not saying Jeremy Corbyn is that, but there are some people who are in America, for all over the world now. That's why so many right-leaning parties are now having a rising up, because they're actually answering to the people who aren't being answered, and you've got to address that, and you've got to address those people, and actually address what is wrong with them, instead of just simply saying they are a small populace.
Right, let's just. Oh no, I was going to talk to Margot first before.
I just wanted to say, semi-addressing what you said. I think it's a fine line between telling people. For instance, what you just said made me think of is people following or supporting Donald Trump in America. You have to listen to those people as well. But those people, as far as they're concerned, they want Donald Trump to win, as we all, I think, may have an inkling. He's not entirely right in his views, right? So it's a fine line between kind of patronizing people about, sorry, your views are wrong, you just need to go and educate yourself. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a hard one to call, and so I don't know what the solution to that is, but it's easy to say, you guys who voted Leave, you need to go and educate yourself a little bit more, because I don't think education is a currency these days, which is very sad.
Frank, were you
okay,
pondering?
So I'm just about to go, so I'll just...
so make this your final thoughts as well? Okay.
I think the education thing is probably the most important part of society, and it's hugely neglected. And as a student, I feel like I'm going into 6th form and I'm doing art, RS, English and film studies. But I feel like in school it's really nice to know things. It's nice to know about chemistry and about biology and all this stuff. It's cool. But I'd also quite like to know about other things and what life is actually like. Especially coming to this festival, it's just it just blows my mind, because there are different people everywhere, whereas I live in a place it's just white people, endless white average people, and here you've got all sorts. Why can't everywhere
you should
be like
visit
that?
London one day. Yes.
Well, I do go to London, and even in London I don't see it.
Really?
Yeah, I think maybe I'm just blind to it, and maybe this is gonna open up my eyes to it. I'm gonna start seeing the different people.
All right, let's
People of different races at your school, lots and lots.
Yeah, but not
not representative though. Okay. Anyway, thank you for these.
Other people of
passing
different
thoughts.
classes at your school, it might be a bit more interesting question to ask. I don't actually really think so. Oh yeah, I went to America recently, and I was talking to people. Everyone loves Donald Trump there, and they think he's a breath of fresh air. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Because he challenges the dogma.
Leah and Poppy, what were your parting words of wisdom?
I just don't like Donald Trump.
Don't like Donald Trump. Okay. I mean, on a hunch, yeah, like Mikey was saying, Margot was saying, probably most people don't hear don't.
One, his fake tan and his hair. And
This goes back to judgment, which was something we were talking about a while ago.
two, his beliefs and how he represents his belief and everything like that.
He's American.
Yeah. Well, I haven't really said anything, but I think it's been really interesting hearing what other people's views are, and also especially about how everyone here is accepted. Because there are people here that if they were just walking around where we live, everyone would judge them. But here, like, they're just here, and nobody judges them. I don't know.
Are you going to come back next year?
I think Leo and Frank definitely want to come back next year, and it sounds like you girls do as well. And we've had a fantastic time, and this has been brilliant. So yes, we'll be back next year.
I think this deserves a round of applause. Yeah. Cool. And so let's hear from Melvin, and also we have a new face. Come on,
I just wanted to say one thing to you about Corbyn and stuff, because I think nowadays it's really hard. There's so much information, and trying to work. It's really hard to get enough information on anything and who to trust, and then the people that disseminate or information, they twist it, and it's a media circus. It's a media circus, but then that's part of humanity. It's like we are cultural creatures, but lots of money's been spent on the arts of persuasion and sales. And truth isn't. Yeah, so I can understand.
But clearly not enough, because Zach here hasn't heard of Jeremy Corbyn or Donald Trump.
No, I've heard of Donald Trump. I'm just confused as to why we're discussing Donald Trump. As an American politician.
Have you not been paying attention? We're
find
discussing
that highly
politics as a
pertinent
general
that
concept.
we're discussing an American politician who's not even the president. Whoever the bloody hell he is, he's,
This guy.
What's he got to do with our government?
Well, he doesn't have maybe seemingly that much to do with British government or your government, as you like to put it, or does he exactly? Isn't America who is dictating UK's foreign policy? Just to kind of reiterate the obvious, Thomas is coming back, but it is important, because I think Donald Trump is a symbol of something. I think also the Britain voting out, kind of voting against globalism. I think that's a very interesting situation to be discussing. I think Donald Trump is like a mascot of that process somehow, and that's relevant to all countries. Anyway.
Oh, cool! I get it. No, I don't get it.
Oh, no, you don't.
Oh, okay. I would say the reason why it is because people still remember Mr. Blair, who was so very close to his American. The Inquisition were Christians. They were so. Okay, but it's that memory. So the fear that an American politician might have that influence. I think that's why people are scared of him, because we had a prime minister that was so. That helped create. Well, screw the world basically with a war that has caught a war on terror and a whole mentality. That's why I think it's fair. It's that see that it's like no, please no, but it's fair. That's why.
Let's hear from. So I genuinely can't quite tell. I'm assuming you're kind of playing. Oh, no. I don't know.
He genuinely is.
You actually don't know who Donald Trump are.
I'm going to go ahead and take.
Go for it. Please go for it. Just to yeah.
You are off the grid when it comes to this sort of stuff.
Are you that off the grid with? Hello. Are you that off the grid with politics and?
I don't recognise their delusions. I won't be codependent in their sense of authority.
You were like kind of saying earlier that
I'm vaguely aware that he's a human being, but I didn't know that he was a part of the Labour Party.
Right. And Trump as well.
I know about him because people talk about him.
Yeah. But so you didn't know Jeremy Corbyn because you don't watch. I'm assuming
it's more of a rhetorical question.
Okay, right. You're playing devil's advocate a little bit.
Essentially,
Okay, cool.
you could say that.
Just
yeah.
trying to get where we are, because otherwise, when someone says the
But it was.
JC,
I did
I've got
actually need it
establish
to be
whether they mean
clarified.
Jesus Christ or Jeremy Corbyn.
I didn't quite know enough about him to see what the discussion was about when I came into it. So, personally, I think the more alienation there is in politics, the less representation there can be.
Yeah, more alien and
A direct correlation, I'd even go that far.
It's less democratic when there's kind of a bit of a disparity there. What about Harry? And then I'll say hello to our new face here.
Just to say what you were saying about Tony Blair, personally, I think he was probably the worst leader we've ever had, in my opinion. Like, you can make disputes and whatever, but he's made, like, under the guise of George Bush, he made it so that George Bush could just go under the guise of Labour and just working with them. Yeah, and made that war possible, pretty much, under the guise of Labour, more of a centre-left leaning party. When in that regard, they weren't at all in that sort of like New Labour, that sort of thing.
So, are you in favour of punishing Blair as a war criminal?
What I would like to say is two things. One is, as we speak in Edinburgh Festival, they are reading Chilcote's report. My friend is orchestrating this whole thing, and I think that's quite interesting. Just to kind of read through it, and it's like from what I understand, it's like 2 or 3 people at the time who get to listen to the other person reading it, and I think maybe it's quite a striking way of acquiring the news or acquiring knowledge about something quite topical and not take it from the papers or whatever. That's one thing I was going to say. Second thing is that Tony Blair, I'm not from this country, I'm from a different country or whatever, but it seems to me like Tony Blair, he started off being quite a positive, likeable figure, and then it seems, I think you'll find that some people actually really like him. He was playing media really well, and then he was voted in. For some reason, some people voted him in. So what I am going to say is that he then kind of started. We were talking about gut instinct earlier in terms of like taking a vote. He listened to his gut instinct, and you know how they say, oh, is he just a pretender? Did he mean to go into that war? Was he manipulated? And then he said, when the Chilcot report came out, he was saying, I genuinely believe that was the best thing we could do at that time, and I fucking believe him, unless he's a very good actor, and I'm completely.
Hang on, let's hear from Harry and then from Mikey.
But in a previous interview, he also said he would have gone to war anyway, if not for any evidence from other nations and so on. So. It was it was with Tony Blair again, a fresher breath air from the Conservatives beforehand. That kind of new idea. But then when they actually got to know him, he wasn't that whatever. And when you see like interviews of him at the time, you actually get to realise, this man's not exactly what we thought he would be, and under the guise of New Labour and so on.
So I'm just going to very quickly hear from Mikey, but then I'm going to get everyone to
He's a lying psychopath, basically. I wouldn't trust his gut instinct now. He just did whatever he thought would be best for his own career. And that's the only reason. That's not the point I'm making, though.
But okay.
The point I'm making is now the reason why they like Donald Trump, the reason why they voted for Brexit, is because politicians have suddenly realised we don't actually have to tell the truth. We just have to come up with some clever ideas that people grasp onto. Like benefit scroungers are actually are sucking our country dry, or fucking immigrants. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't actually have to have any factual basis at all. It's just something that you say to be popular, and no one's going to check you up on it. Or some people might, but it'll be on Radio 4 or something like that. So.
And even if you do, it doesn't matter because you're going to become a foreign minister anyway. So.
But can I just push pause just for a second? Because we've got a couple of new faces, and you might not all know each other's names. So should we take this opportunity to get a round of names? Let's start with
Zach.
We've got Zach.
Harry.
Alan.
Melvin.
Roderick. Margot. Mikey.
Arthur.
Thomas, and my name's Rohan. So Blair was a bit of a git by the sound of it. And
are you Blairite?
He's a Catholic, and it's important to understand that.
Look like a Blairite to me.
Well, there's an interesting point here because this doesn't cover conversation too much. So, Roderick, do you want to?
It seems like we spend a lot of time being incredulous about the behaviour and the activities of other people. But, for instance, Blair is a devout Catholic. he kind of let this on much later on in his prime ministership, or whatever you'd call that, premiership, than we'd like. But if you understand the sort of Catholic ideology, which believes it is the one true church, which is tasked with spreading the message of Jesus Christ across and converting every single person on the planet, and the idea of... Not really. Islam... Yeah, okay, well, hold on. Specifically in Catholicism, they claim to be the one true church, and they also have the mission of converting everybody. And also the mission of spreading, like, justice, all that kind of stuff.
So he was actually not technically acting against what he believed in, which is what Mikey... Were you sort of going in that direction? You were sort of saying he was just doing what he was doing for his own agenda.
No,
I suppose that's still his own agenda.
His own agenda, but it's a spiritual agenda.
It was masked. He wasn't saying that outwardly. He wasn't broadcasting that he was doing this because it was actually...
But to have that,
he wanted to kickstart the Crusades.
To have that righteousness essentially on his side means that it motivates him to go and
I have a hunch we're going to have some contravening opinion right now. Let's hear from Melvin.
So I've got to say two things just to add to the Blair hate. And before that, there was free education. There was free university education in England.
Yeah.
Okay, and to say to what you say, I think you have true believers, whether they're communists, anarchists, any religion. You've got true believers, and true believers think they're right, and it's a good idea to persuade other. You have true believers across the board. It's like you have Catholic ones, you have them. About films like Frozen. It's the best film ever. Anyway.
Well, let's hear from Harry. And
to what you were saying about him being a Catholic, it's when you run for a position in office, you shouldn't, like in my personal opinion, you shouldn't bring your beliefs into the system. Well, not entirely, but religious beliefs. It should be more of a... Even though we don't have it here, it's more of a Christian ideology. It's that separation between church and state, that idea of a secular government not imposing religious beliefs onto another, especially going to another entirely different nation altogether to do that. So,
how do you disentangle your morality from the morality?
Hang on, wait. Let's wait for the mic. So, how do you separate, your own personal beliefs? How do you be an objective human being if you're a politician?
That's what a real human being is like.
Yeah.
How do you actually? Sorry. Okay. But sorry, that's fine. But it's all as an emotional human being, and Tony Blair obviously was raised in a Catholic context, has Catholic instincts, and we're all working very hard at the moment, I think, to deprogram ourselves from what the previous generations believed in order to try and find some sort of new outcome, new equitable sort of settlement. But as a real person, can he really act objectively? There's no such... I don't believe
it. So there's no such thing as objectivity, so do people just need to be more honest about it then?
Possibly so, but that's where having a democracy, that's where democracy comes involved with it, because you'll have people counteract what you believe. During the Iraq War, we had some of the biggest protests against it, and not all of them, and of course not everyone was Catholic, so you had to listen to the people who put you into power, and not in some cases, in all cases, instead of just going with your gut feeling.
Can I just say hello to our new face around the table before anything else, because I don't want to be impolite. And guys, wait for the mic. So, hello, can you tell us your name?
Maria.
Maria, welcome, Maria. This is Talkaoke, a pop-up talk show where we can talk about anything. Right now, we're talking, amongst other things, about Blair and the Labour Party circa 2000, whenever it was Blair disappeared, and just why he was in power to begin with. Why did he kind of hide some of his beliefs, and why that led to certain bad things happening?
I mean, I was doing Talkaoke at the time in 2003, and everyone was against. Everyone that sat down, pretty much one or two people, maybe in Henley or something like that, were in favour of it. So it was quite clear that wasn't what people wanted, and actually it was a massive blow to the idea of democracy, and that's in a way not for the people of Iraq that have lost millions of lives and the entire infrastructure, but for us in the UK, the biggest casualty was actually our belief in any kind of system whatsoever.
Yeah, did anyone feel like that? I mean, Alan, what were your thoughts during 2002, 2003?
Well, I've been almost totally silent in this because it's about politics, which is a sort of second or third order importance to me, I think. But no, I just throw in such considerations that the the kind of democracy that we have, it favours the majority. And you always have to include a secret part of yourself which is agreeing with the majority. That is, everybody wants to go on a little longer with the world, more or less exactly as it is and exactly as it has been in their recollection. And they go on persistently electing short-term politicians who are going to go on assuring them that the economics of continual growth on a finite planet are just as valid now as they were in the 1970s, and everything's going to be all right. And there's a secret bit of most of us which actually want, I mean, we do want to be able to plan a train journey next week or something like that. So there's this terrific inertia of democracy in the short term, and we're following this economic system which is it's very finely geared to destroy the world. It just needs to go on, consumption. I mean, the first thing we need is there's a total rejection of the idea of consumers and consumerism, because it's horrifying.
It does sound like a big task, though. It's rejecting consumerism. So let me just apologise already. I have forgotten your name. Maria. So Maria, what was your
I
point
think
to make?
in terms of democracy, I don't think that what's happening and what has been happening is incredibly democratic at all. I think that there are certain people that will go and vote, and a lot of the people who go and vote are the people that quite often seem to be doing quite well, and therefore they want to maintain the status quo. And that's been what I think has been happening within politics, is people like Blair, have been very happy with the way things have been going because it's maintained the feathering of their own nests. And the people who are really, struggling on the most basic level become so disenfranchised and so disheartened that they think these people cannot connect with me at all. Therefore, what's the point in voting?
Well, can I ask our younger guests here, do you, if you could vote, do you feel like you would? Do you does it feel futile?
I think I'd vote for the person who I thought was doing the best job at being a leader and
how would you decide on that?
Well, not always the leaders choose a good decision on making, not always people make the right decision, and I would know what I would think is the right decision. And if
so, you want someone who agrees with you?
Pardon?
You want someone who agrees with you?
Yeah, because I think they know, yeah.
Okay, and what about Thomas?
Yesterday this led to flying bouncy castle and
that did, but we're not going to. But those got Lauren and Jojo aren't here right now, so we don't have to talk about bouncy castles and ketchup again.
Okay, well,
we can take this in other directions.
I think, I would vote for someone who just someone who agrees with me, basically the same. But also, I think not this, Donald Trump. I completely don't agree with him, because he's saying being sexist and loads of things, and build the wall because we don't want these people and stuff like that. That's not what I want at all. I don't know what I want, but I know that's not what I want.
Okay, so you might vote against somebody rather than for somebody.
I guess, yeah.
Okay, tactical voting, fair enough. Harry, what's that? Can we just hear a statistic first? Because sometimes this is quite useful.
Just to support, was it Maria? Yeah, Maria, just to support Maria's point, I suppose. The margin by which Exit won in the referendum was just under 2 million, I think 1.67 million. Number of people who didn't vote was above 12 million. It's all very well talking about apathy, but you can't be angry at something that you don't participate in unless you do something to either participate in it or disassemble it.
Cool, and can I just very quickly also say hello to our new face, although that was an almost leaving kind of gesture. It was a leaving gesture. Well, let's say hello anyway, and give us your name.
Hello, my name's Lucy.
Hello, Lucy.
And it's very nice to be here. Hello. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Anyway, Zach.
So, I think it was a rhetorical question. Why vote? I'd like to ask that question.
Why vote?
Why vote?
Well,
I know that there's a point in voting.
Yeah.
I just think we should ask
I'd be
that
happy
question.
to put this to the table a little bit. Like, why? Yeah, okay, Mikey, to start us off with, like.
So it normally happens on a Thursday morning when I'm not normally doing much. So, why not? Why not vote? I very rarely have have faith in it. It's more like so that I can sit on a table like this and kind of say I disagree with what happened and I tried to change it. It didn't work.
Where did that come from? So, Maria, why vote?
I went through a period in my kind of early 20s of not voting, and I really felt that there was nobody that I wanted to vote for. And then I kind of realised that whether I like it or not, I am part of society, and the decisions that are being made do affect me, and therefore I want, however small a part that is, I want to actually say, well, this is what I want, or this is what I don't want, and I used to get really annoyed at people who'd say, well, if you don't vote, then you can't complain about blah 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 because you didn't do anything to oppose that, But the thing is, we are in and of society anyway, and sometimes we can be effective, and just in terms of I regardless of what happens, I don't know what's going to happen in the near future, but I'm very, very glad that I did vote for Jeremy Corbyn as leader of the Labour Party. That was really important for me to do that.
Okay. Other people's reasons for voting. Why do you vote?
It's been instilled in me that if you don't vote, then you have no reason to complain. But also, for somebody who can't, who never could vote in general election, I wasn't really bothered about it because I never felt it was like my business in the first place, because I came over here from the hated European Union country. Right, these guys basically die now because I said that, but so I was like, oh, whatever. It's like, it's this country, there's this people's vote that counts until Brexit. I think that was the one moment in history that really turned me and made me think fuck, I really want to make sure. And even though I don't have any desire to be a British citizen, but I do want to be able to exercise my right to vote about things that concern me directly, which are a range of things related to the country where I live in now, which is England. And I think this is a thing. I mean, Russell Brand is no idol of mine by no means, but he said he's probably paraphrasing someone else, but he said if voting was had any power, it would have been made illegal. And I just wanted to check, I just wanted to see what other people think about that. Is voting actually?
I mean, that's kind of
any meaning?
So that's kind of raised the question a bit from just why do you vote to why isn't it illegal? If it had any power, does that suggest it's actually completely useless?
I don't know if I have an opinion on that point.
Okay, well, let's start with the. Sorry, I'm going round because we had so many hands up.
For a second.
Yeah. We've got 1, 2, 3 hands up. I'm going round like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we don't have an opinion.
I'm just answering the question that was going round, hopefully, on right to work. And I vote, but I think it's got a very, very, very slight possibility that it will make a difference, and just because of that very, very slight, even if there's a tiny, tiny little possibility of something making a difference, then I think it's worth doing it. But I think voting is one thing, but I think there's lots of other ways of being active that are really important, but I haven't quite worked out what they are.
Well, we think about those, and then put your hand up in a second. We can go over to these kind of things. Potentially, let's get to that in a sec.
I think voting.
Oh, sorry, I didn't think you had your hand up. Sorry. Yeah, Alan. Sorry. Yeah. Oh no, this is Supernormal. I don't do clockwise. No. It was it started off as just who had their hands up, but then everyone had their hands up, so it became an anti-clockwise movement. Alan, please proceed.
Totally in brackets.
Yep.
There's a guy named Derek Jensen, acres of him on YouTube. He's a USA activist. If you aren't familiar with him, he's worth checking on. But I think his particular point is it's been obvious for however many years you care to say, 30, 40, 50, that this society needs a total transformation. and everybody of nice right mind is sitting around waiting for other people to effect the transformation, and it's not going to happen. So
part of the apathy that
he's proposing a sort of occasionally violent form of non-violent action, but
sounds like a paradox.
But he's particularly concerned, as I would be, with the natural world. He wants to protect the redwoods and the salmon and so on, which he actually feels part of, as I do, but which few people do. Okay.
So it's a bit of a Lovelock kind of character. Harry?
I think voting does work to a certain degree. Otherwise, we wouldn't have seen the rise of Jeremy Corbyn. Like, especially with the youth votes. It's like unfortunately, like it or hate it, not that many of the younger voters went out to vote for the EU, and it got so close to that point. And then with Jeremy Corbyn, so many people came to it was like a record for how many people joined the Labour Party just to vote for Jeremy Corbyn. So I think it does work to a certain extent, and it's unfortunately it comes back to populist politics, where people hear just quotes or things like that, and they like that idea, and they're just going to vote based on that. And that's why you're seeing so many new voters across the world, be it left wing or right wing, in that regard.
Okay, thank you. And who's next round table? Maria.
I think that voting is incredibly powerful and always has been, and that's why you can look historically and see, when people weren't allowed to vote, there's a time when black people weren't allowed to vote, there's a time when women weren't allowed to vote, and because the things they would have voted for were not what the establishment wanted. And I think that, as you said about Jeremy Corbyn, they did everything they could, And, trying to prevent him being on the ballot paper, suddenly upping, to £25 from £3, then you've only got a 48-hour window. That is the power of voting, that actually really does mean something. And they're very afraid that when people get off their asses and say, actually, I can do something, actually, I can be effective, that things will change, I think, drastically.
Arthur.
I think that you should vote if you can, because, do you
think you should be made to?
You don't have to, but if you want to, Brexit is very important, but you don't have to vote on everything. But I personally, if I could, I would vote for Brexit. And then I would vote in Brexit.
Oh right, gotcha. Yeah. Not that we'd criticise, just curious, curious. That's all. Yeah. Cool.
Because as she said, it's very powerful, because one vote could change everything, and
in principle, yep. Please.
Hi, parents.
Cool.
Come and sit. Come and join. Yeah. Look, there's two of you and there's two seats. Surely this makes sense to come and sit down. Even if you don't want to join in, come and sit down.
So because you can only vote once.
Yeah.
In a voting, and I just think you should if you can, but I don't think you should be forced to, and you should be
pointing it to your mouth, that's all. Yeah.
And I don't think that you should be fined if you don't vote.
So don't do as they do in Australia. Mikey.
I've got nothing to say anymore, because I think Maria said it all for me. Really.
Yeah.
It is powerful, and it's about having that agency. And one thing the establishment doesn't want you to have is a sense that you've got the agency. They want you to think, oh, this is pointless. Really, it's a question about whether who's more professional. Owen Smith, Ed Miliband, or David Cameron, Theresa May? Who's a better, safer pair of hands? That's what they want you to think. They don't want you to think anything can be changed, and that you've got any agency.
I think also on the topic of voting, it's very rarely, paradoxically, that the person who has got a strong policies about XYZ subjects get elected is the people who look the part. and it's really sad, because what that exposes, like, you have to look the part, you have to look trustworthy, whether you are or aren't. It doesn't actually matter. You just have to look the part. You have to behave in a certain way. You have to do up your buttons on your shirt and a salute to the fucking Queen's anthem. That's what you have to do to appear credible. Apparently not. And that is something that we get trapped in. But second thing I wanted to say is this thing, like, for instance, what I wanted to kind of bring up is like the whole movement of Black Lives Matter in America, where I don't think we fully understand that in Great Britain. Not that I am from Great Britain, but you know, it's just this thing of, I think it's not as massive of a movement here. It's kind of in support of what's happening in America as it is actually happening in America.
Yeah.
And that's friggin' powerful, and I don't think we fully understand that here.
That's going to take us into... Can we park them just for a second to get everyone's opinions on the last point? But then, yeah, let's go to that. Also, I do find it, the timing of that music coming in was pretty fantastic. And let's just hear it from Martha for 2 seconds.
This music...
I know, but I'm just so curious.
This music is a threat to democracy.
What? Oh, what? That sounds like a value judgment there. Anyway, Melvin, let's put us back on the straight and narrow.
I think I wanted to talk about, to disagree with a lot of, like, you have a very pessimistic view about humanity, but I think in this time, I think people have got lots and lots of power, like with voting and all that type of stuff. So there could be, if enough people make a decision, there could be an uprising now. There could be a transformation now. I think that you can actually touch people through technology now. So things could change like that if enough people made a decision now. That is a possibility. And I'm connecting it to the stuff about voting and the power of voting.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of power that has that. So at any point, yeah.
Yes, it is good. But consumerism makes people so bloody comfortable. In fact, it's insidious. It's insidious. So, you know, who wants transformation when you have consumerism?
Yeah, I see where you came from. There's a comfort there, and people want that.
Just a small example of like when voting makes a change. I think the UK was one of the last, well, not one of the last, but it was very late in coming of giving women the right to vote. It was, I think it was the late 20s, early 30s and so on. And obviously women fought for that. And you see, and slowly but surely you saw a massive transformation of how the current climate and ideals of the country were back then. Just a massive change of ideas. And that, I think, shows you what voting can do, especially when you give the opportunity for people to vote more and actually make it much more of like there are some countries that have it on the weekends, make it more of like a national holiday, that type idea, making it much more of a thing of like celebrating it, like celebrating democracy in that sort of regard, rather than making it more of a chore, which so many people find it to be.
I wonder if our country would sort of stand for that, a public holiday for voting.
It would increase voting.
Yeah.
I have to address the Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, well, let's get to this then. So,
I think the major difference why it is so much more of a bigger movement.
if you guys are escaping, you've got to give us a final thought.
Than it is here is one word: guns.
Yeah.
You know, black people are not being shot. We are being shot here, but not as frequently as in America. You know, I mean, my friends, brothers, etc. You know, they've all have and do go through, you know, being stopped and searched and all of that kind of stuff, and you know, and the tougher sentences, you know, things like that. But you know, it's far less likely that they're going to be just gunned down in the streets. You know, and I think that the really, you know, the aspect of you actually just losing your life, you know, is huge. You know, and it's not just about your quality of life, it's whether you live or die. And another thing on that is that it's incredible the amount of people who've been offended by it, you know, and what they see is this invisible word, only Black Lives Matter, instead of the other invisible word, which is Black Lives Matter too. You know, and so people have really become very, very angry and offended by it.
Do you feel like maybe the hashtag should have been slightly different then to maybe accommodate that?
No. I think it should be as succinct as it is.
Yeah.
And just this is because I think that
it betrays people's ignorance.
Yes, exactly, and it shows how people interpret.
These guys are just disappearing. So let's get some final thoughts from Harry and Zach here.
I think what you're also saying, it was also, again, mass media saying, well, why is it only Black Lives Matter, and trying to pin it as like very equal side of arguments. And when it comes to so many shootings in America, trying to equal it as side arguments, well, the policeman felt under threat. What do you have to say to that? And trying to dispute the facts in so many regards of like, it's like, you should realise by then, when it's an occurring theme in a lot of the country, that unfortunately minorities are being shot, and you're just simply saying, well, it's obviously an issue with this and that and the other, when you're not addressing it's either guns or how police are being trained. Like how it's that sort of, like we used to joke about it, that sort of shoot first, ask questions later, and now it's literally that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Zach,
I care very much about anyone who gets shot, but I'm not too concerned about what category people want to put them in, and I apply that to politics in the sense that I consider myself to be a minority because there's only one of me, and I don't think that anyone who's never met me can accurately make any decision that will positively influence me, and I don't need them to anyway, because my life's sorted without them. They have no idea who I am, and it makes no difference to me.
That's a very personal thing, but society will box you, and probably within some quite reasonable doubt as well.
Well, I'm politically incorrect, and I find that offensive.
As you are entitled to be. Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys. Let's now jump. I'm going to jump over here actually, because Margot's had her hand up for quite a while.
I just wanted to say
just before she speaks, we have 3 chairs here, potentially 4, because it looks like Alan's about to stand up.
Come and join us, guys.
So there's so many people standing. Why don't some of those standing come and sit? There we go. We've got 2 proactive bods right there. Alan, would you like to impart us with a final thought before you go, and then I'll hand it over to Margot? Alan, do you have a final thought? Do you have a final thought for us?
Okay,
guys, let's just listen to Alan's final thought.
Just to remember, there is no such thing as a human being, but every one of us is going to be a totally unique, distinctive and non-replaceable human being. Okay? But there is no such thing as a human being. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels like a paradox, but I guess it isn't. So guys, you know what? It's quite late in the day now. I think should we get Margot to say a final little thing, and then I might.
Maybe we can pass the microphone on to somebody else. But there's a man with a cabbage hat going past again.
Back again.
I feel that's a recurrent theme in my life tonight. Anyway, what I was going to say is like something that you mentioned, is like. Actually, I don't know if that's what you mentioned, but what you said made me think of that. England is much smaller of a country than America, and their regard for individual life is just maybe slightly different. It may be slightly controversial. That also makes me think of Russia, which is a massive country, and people are treated more like, you know, whatever. We've got so many citizens. Literally, your life doesn't really. We don't give a fuck. Are we gonna die? Oh, boo-hoo, whatever. You know, which is awful, which is really, really awful. But I think maybe the size of the country plays a slight difference in how policies are formed, and how this whole thing with shooting black people down is a problem. I don't think it's just about black people, but I think it's just about the attitude to humans. But as it happens, black people got it really bad recently, which is just so crazy. In 2016, after everything that we've been through, I find it incredible, and that really pains me. I don't understand it. I can try to categorize it, but it just, as a human being, that offends me. The whole thing.
All right, let's. Really quick, 16 points.
It's not recent. It's not recent. This is the way it's always been. It's just being highlighted.
A lot of historic precedent, in fact, almost infamously.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's continue these conversations outside the table, because we are going to say goodbye, good night
To Rohan.
To me. Are we going to end? Michael's going to do one final stint, which is great.
Half an hour.
Mikey's going to finish us off for about half an hour. But so we've talked about everything from like the spectrum of the Labour Party to the sort of philosophical constructs around why it's important to vote and like your point in the whole system. We touched on ketchup, but fortunately this time very briefly. Anyway, thank you ever so much everyone for your inputs and I guess your outputs as well. I'm going to hand over to Mikey now, so I'm going to jump over and run to the loo because I've been bursting since I jumped in here. Cheers, guys. I've been Rohan, your host. See you next time.
Let's give Rohan a big round of applause, and we'll keep it going. But it's going to be the final half hour because we have to get this stuff into the van before the sun goes down, and also get some more drinks in. I know that could be not mutually compatible, but we'll work that out as and when we go. So this is Talkaoke, and as Rohan pointed out, we've been talking about lots and lots of different things. We can continue the current theme. We've been talking about politics, we've been talking about Black Lives Matter, the historical perspective as well was just coming out. This isn't something that happened just recently, says Maria. We can go along that theme. It's kind of up to you, this is your show, so we just go whatever way you want to go. I will point out there's only half an hour left, so now's the time to sit down on the table and get involved. That lanyard, it's barely a lanyard anyway. It's just a piece of string. It's just a piece of string, it's not even a proper lanyard. That's no excuse whatsoever. So come and sit down and come and get involved in this while you still can. Let's quickly get around names and we'll just carry on this conversation. What's your name?
Arthur.
And?
Wina. Margot.
Rodri.
Melvin.
Xander.
George.
Geraldine. Maria.
And?
Yanko, flying volunteer.
Okay. All right. Okay. So where do we want to go with this conversation?
Wait.
Yep.
I think the invisible word should be everyone is exactly equal.
Okay. Do you believe everyone is exactly equal?
Yeah. I think no one's better than anyone else.
Okay. All right. Yep.
I agree with you 100%. Unfortunately, we live in a world where a lot of other people think differently, and those people that think differently, if they don't have the power to enact that, that's fine. But when they do, and when they carry guns, and when they're in a position of authority, then they become very, very dangerous.
Do you think those people think that they're treating everybody equally?
No. No,
they don't think they are.
know that they're not. They know
Right,
that they're not. You know, and I mean, I know that in this country, for example, you know, the kind of stop and search, etc.
Yeah.
They are specifically told that this is our remit. This is what you have to do. You need to stop and search black people. We're going to target black people.
Why?
Because black people, as far as they're concerned, are more likely to be committing crimes.
So
this started a very, very, very long time ago. This started during the slave trade. And during the slave trade, there's always been slaves, you know, in so many different ancient societies. But during the slave trade, when people started to oppose it, and it was so massive, it was so huge, you know, you didn't have a transatlantic slave trade before, and the argument was therefore in order to maintain it, apart from the financial argument, but in order to actually, because you had the Christian argument that you know these are human beings, so the argument was actually they're not. Actually, they're not human beings.
They're not.
You know? And this continues in academic society today. You have respected academics, professors who will say categorically that black people cannot and do not have the same level of intelligence as white people. You know, this is taught. You know, and so in that sense, it's like it will perpetuate until that changes.
All right, I'm just trying to get in the mind of the mind of these people that are shooting black people. Are they doing it because they think they're criminal? Because they think they're not equal? Because they think they're not as intelligent? Melvin?
I wanted to talk about when you were talking about America. America was founded by, there was indigenous people when America came. Lots of indigenous people were, lots and lots of them were massacred, basically. Yeah. And even now, like, most of the indigenous people, most of the tribes survive, but people say that the Native Americans were wiped out. They're not. They've been marginalised, they've been put on reservations and stuff like that. Yeah. The culture that spawned America is very much based on weapons and massacres. That's part of that history.
Massacres based on race as well.
Yeah, it's part of that's how they managed to get the land.
So it's very much ingrained into the culture.
It's part of their culture.
What about in the UK? have you got I mean, have we got that ingrained into our history, as Maria says, with the slave trade and justice somehow justifying
I think
this
I
oppression?
like bashing Americans, but humans are humans. Humans were the most dangerous thing on the planet.
Okay. The most dangerous animal on the planet, Rodri?
Yeah. Humans, yeah, absolutely. Left to their own devices. Like, it seems as though all of this stuff, and I don't want to diminish like the Black Lives Matter sort of message, but at the root here is just the tendency of other people to other people, to see other people as distinct from themselves because of a psychological tendency to reject aspects of themselves that they don't like. They don't realise that if they were in that context, had grown up with that kind of conditioning, had been born with that kind of genetics, they may well have ended up like that person. So when it comes to the social and the cultural factors that cause, say for instance, a certain demographic to commit more crimes, it's nothing to do with genetics, nothing to do with skin colour, everything to do with inequality, everything to do with economic suppression, everything to do with all this crap that creates this reality that then the victims are blamed for. And I reckon that you can kind of understand it a lot more effectively if you see parallels in the marginalisation of benefits claimants, the marginalisation of like indigenous people, as you say, in other countries, and
anyone who's not like you, and you being the
template
rulers.
for what is good, because of course I am good, I don't do wrong, but other people do wrong, they're nasty.
Okay.
I think that's the thing. Somebody said recently that one of the most unequal things that you can do to fellow human beings to treat them equally. I was like, the fuck can you mean? But actually, it's true. Equality, equality is something that has to be specific. You know, you have to treat people according to where they're from, you know, what accent they speak, what skin color they are.
So
but what I mean by that is like
differences?
potentially because what that means is, for instance, just because I'm from another country, that means I've received a different kind of education. So if you treat me by British standards, you may be a little bit surprised, but that doesn't undermine me as a human being. That what that says
I
is
guess
just,
what I'm picking up is there's an equality in terms of like how you value that person, but there's a difference, let's say, in how you react to them. Hang on a sec, Roger, because I'm going to come to Maria, then Arthur, and back to you again.
I mean, 2 points. First of all, in terms of, treating people differently, if I'm talking to somebody that I know is hard of hearing, I'm going to move my mouth more articulately, etc., you know, because I want that person to understand what I'm saying. That doesn't mean that person's a lesser person. And the other point that you were saying about demographics that might commit more crimes, I don't think that's the case about demographics that, you know, people, certain section of society that commit more crimes. There are certain sections of society where there'll be more of them in prison. But that doesn't mean that they've committed more crimes. You know, if you decide that you're going to stop and search, you know, 50 black people in a day, and you're going to stop and search one white person in a day, what's the percentage of people, and what are the actual numbers of people that you're going to find have committed a crime?
More white people are going to get away with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to be, in a way, proving your own statistics. Come and get involved in this. Come and have a seat on the table of chat. We got Sandra, we got George. What's your name?
Geraldine.
We got Maria, and we got Arthur, and Weiner. And Arthur, what are you going to say?
I think that, like, I totally agree with you. Like, more white people will get away with it, and they can't say that we're going to search 50 black people and one white person, because that's not true. They should stop and search more white people if they know they're going to search at least 50 black people.
So how many white people should they stop and search, would you say?
They should probably search, depending what if they want to stop and search someone and they have a good reason to, they should.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that they should only do one white person, because that just is
but what about
really
if their
offensive.
reason to stop people is they think that black people are more likely to be criminals, so therefore just being black is a reason to stop someone?
Well, that can't be a reason to stop someone, because, like, how would that be a reason to stop someone? Everyone is a human. Everyone have the same rights. Just because they got a different skin colour doesn't mean they have different, like, rights.
Okay.
And just to say about, have you heard about profiling? So they profile people, like going through the airport, or from the police, they look at maybe background, like ethnic background, colour or whatever. They might look at whatever suburb they're in or whatever and decide, okay, and they relate them to certain crimes in certain areas. So profiling is also an issue.
It happens. Okay, and if you happen to be in the wrong profile.
So I think I don't necessarily think it's black people that are getting shot. I know they talk about it, but I think if you look at the statistics, there is a lot of white people as well. I think there's a lot of everyone just getting shot because gun crime is on the up.
It is disproportionately ethnic minorities. I would just say that. And one thing I thought I could raise is this question of like, of course, like on the personal level, there's police officers in this country and in the States behaving in a racist manner, but perhaps like another way of looking at that is the problem of like accountability. Like, are the police accountable in this country? We have this thing called the IPCC, which is the Independent Police Complaints Commission, which just basically replaced a very similar body about 5 years ago, I think. And they're supposed to do what they say on the tin. They're supposed to be independent from the police, deal with complaints.
Are they all of these things?
Well, so basically there's been over 700 complaints that have been to do with serious violence and some killing, like deaths in custody and stuff, disproportionately affecting ethnic minorities. Since it was started 5 years ago, there's been 2 police officers who've lost their jobs.
Okay.
They weren't sentenced with anything.
Any police officers been prosecuted?
No, none prosecuted. 2 lost their jobs. They were forced to leave their jobs at the age of like 30 or 40 on a full pension. So is that accountability?
Okay, so you don't believe the police are accountable?
No, but I think that's an important.
But if they were, maybe this wouldn't happen.
If you know you're going to get away with it because the whole system doesn't work, then.
Okay, all right. So there's nothing to hold the police to account. Yep.
I've got a sort of question.
What about politicians, actually?
Yeah, exactly. So on this point.
Yeah, sorry, that should have been. Yeah, go on.
That's fine. No, how do you know what I'm going to say?
Yeah.
The what is politics for? Fundamentally, it's to prevent violence. It's to prevent war. It's to allow all of us to work together and to create some sort of common interest or to cater to everyone in society in some way, even if not to satisfy everybody's needs all the time, but at least to reach some sort of agreement and compromise. And I think that without the threat of violence, politics loses its relevance.
Right.
When we're angry, what do? We go out and we shout about it and we have peaceful protests, or we write letters to the Times, or we do sign petitions or whatever.
Yeah.
But without the threat of a physical dissolution of the state, what good does any democratic process have?
So you think there needs to be more? You think there should be a threat of violence, a threat of like
it loses its
absolute
purpose.
crumbling of the state?
It loses its purpose unless there's something to protect against, which is in this case chaos, anarchy, and.
But could it instead of that be like a politician's watchdog that stops them from lying and
cheating?
Again,
if they don't do their job, how do we hold them to account? Fundamentally, the buck stops at physical violence.
Okay, so you think the physical violence might be a good way to hold politicians to account? Would that work with policemen? Melvin, I'll come to you on this, Sander.
I guess the only time I can think of where politicians have been properly held to account recently, if properly is the word, is when there was that giant expenses scandal. And they were it was basically public shaming was the best attitude that seemed to work, which is quite ugly.
Yeah.
Well, this is it, but like, this is it, but I think like,
so there should be more public shaming of politicians.
Basically, once the media is more impartial, if that's ever going to happen, I think it gives a much more likely path to a better informed public, and then more able to act upon injustices that we see.
Okay, right, Melvin.
I would say I think it would be really good if politicians were held accountable if they sort of like the lies that have been told, especially recently, if there was some type of. There isn't anything to monitor that whatsoever. I've got no idea how that would work. And the other thing is that I would say, I would say
that it might be a problem to the suggestion if you don't know how it's going to actually work. Anyway, go and carry it. I didn't want to.
You could use a scientific method, I suppose, whether this is true or not. But what I was going to say then, I don't think the purpose of democracy in society. I don't think that the purpose of democracy is to. I think it's to embetter all of humanity, as opposed to. I think the model that you're talking about is like punishing a child or somebody, sort of like saying
slap on the wrist.
You need to do violence to them to teach them a lesson. But I don't think democracies. I think democracy could, or well,
we
politicians
can move out of the violent phase and move forward to a non-violent.
It could be something positive that lifts humanity as opposed to just whacking them.
Do we need the latent threat of violence in the background to, as Rodri says, to actually keep politicians? Oh, in a minute you can clarify, but about 6 people need to talk before then. Ross, what are you going to say?
There's a short story by Italo Calvino that's in a small town. The mayor of the town gets elected, and the only rule is that at the end of your time as mayor, you get hung by the public.
Right.
And so you face inevitable death.
Right.
And I like that as a concept. If you want to take the responsibility of leading people
How long
and
is your
making
term?
decisions like that, well, 3 years, let's say.
Okay.
And after that, there's no other, killing of people, obviously, but that's gonna. You're gonna do your best job if you know that your life is on the line.
Okay, will anyone here be the mayor or be the prime minister if they knew they were going to get hung? Yeah. Maria, were you going to say?
Maybe I would be, actually, because, I'm not a politician and I wouldn't see myself in a position where I think I could really, really lead people, but I think that in some respects, if you can actually truly, devote a certain percentage of your life to actually trying to make people's lives better and leave that as your legacy and say, well, I've done this thing, and this is a really important thing and this is a really good thing, then, if you're going to die at the end, everyone dies anyway.
Yeah, so you might as well go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're really good, maybe there would be a big protest and you'll get another term. Okay, Margot, and then...
I think people should just get imprisoned if they, at the beginning when somebody's trying to get to be a prime minister, for instance, they make a series of promises. We kind of touched on that yesterday. It's like, you are genuinely promising X, Y, Z. You better make your fucking pull your act together. Make sure that happens, because if you don't, then you're gonna get imprisoned or killed or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that wouldn't make going into into politics such an easy leap, because I think a lot of these now politicians, like people who are successful, they've got the ego kind of out there. It's like, I can do fucking anything I want. That is not politics, though.
Okay.
You really have to look after the people that you are ruling.
Oh, hang on. We got Arthur, and then we got Rodri, and then you haven't said anything at all. I might encourage you to be on.
That's kind of not really true, because people in the Brexit campaign, they promised a lot of things, and that it hasn't been answered. They lied a lot.
Do you think they should go to prison, or
they shouldn't be the ones to get the last laugh? I don't think.
Yeah. Okay.
And also,
should they be in prison?
Yeah.
Well, that would be a hard decision, because if they did say that they would give the NHS over £300 million.
Yeah.
A week. I mean, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah. So
why promise it?
Okay, so people are making the promises, Okay. Should they go to prison? That's the question. Roger, you wanted to do some clarification?
I don't know, yeah. So prison is a kind of violence, I suppose. You deprive people of, their ability to be free, to love,
They're
to
in prison
exist.
by the walls,
So when I say violence, I don't necessarily mean going and punching someone to death or stabbing them in the neck. So, for instance, a creative use of physical violence would be we go into the MP's office, 30 people, through the House of Commons, and remove him from his office and put him on the street.
Okay.
Him, I'm saying him.
Yeah.
Maybe her, maybe Theresa May.
Yeah.
But they. Okay.
So
I'll
you
use
think
my
we should
pronouns.
act as a mob to actually punish?
Not even mobs, but essentially creative responses to this kind of things. But
I think that's what Rodri's saying. Yeah.
I'm advocating physical violence.
If you really want
Yeah.
Because
your way.
It may not always go your way. You might.
If I punch someone, then they're perfectly entitled to punch me back.
Okay, so it could go back, could go very bad.
Just a brief point, because I'm going to disappear. That in terms of holding politicians accountable, I think we also have to realise that in terms of leaders, whether somebody can actually do what they said they could do. So, for example, Obama absolutely promised that he would get rid of Guantanamo Bay, and that didn't happen because he was blocked at every single turn. He really did his best
do you think
to
he
do
should
that.
still go to
and
prison?
I think that has I think that needs to be taken into account. That he wasn't allowed to do that.
Okay, did he try hard enough?
I think he did. I think he did.
Okay.
Anyway, I need to go, so thank you all very much.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Sorry. What I wanted. Oh, I've got the mic. Mine. Why are you? What I wanted to say was the idea that sort of like a ruler then being killed after 3 years. That means that you'd have no consequences if you did awful things. Because like, there's lots of dictators that think they're doing really good and cause a lot of havoc for a lot of people.
So
and they don't mind. There's lots of people that are willing to die for their causes. Sort of like so.
So it could go badly wrong.
It could go really badly wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So does violence breed more violence? Other unintended consequences?
I think just back on the subject of how to hold them accountable.
Yeah.
We had the idea of violence. Yeah. Mention of killing, which I'm not totally on board with.
Yeah.
I just think like if you drive and then you make a violation, you get points on your license.
So politicians should get points on their license.
If you're a doctor, you get your license revoked. A lawyer, a bartender, if you sell alcohol to a minor, your liquor license is revoked. I think that why would you not license such an important career?
You think politicians should be licensed?
Yeah, exactly. Or and have an independent tribunal.
How many points should they get off their license for lying, for example?
Well, I mean, it's always going to be contextual, but if it was a lie that was not necessary, I mean, if it was a lie that wasn't justified, let's say, whatever that means, then you could say you have a certain number of potential points that you can have marked against you, and if you pass a certain
if you do a course, can you get that number of points?
It's illegal for
lower down. Yeah. Okay.
How many chances would you have?
Okay, well, that's one to be debated. That's one to be debated. Maybe Margot's got the answer.
I think your points on your license in terms of politicians is a good idea in principle. However, you have to appreciate that if you are drink driving, you know what the repercussions may be if you kill the person that you're driving with. At most, we're talking a bus full of people, right? 40 people, let's say.
Yeah.
If you're running a country and you tell them a blatant friggin' lie into their faces and you're like, yeah, this guy. And then you go, I didn't mean that. It was just a possibility. Then you are held to, there's way more lives. Okay, they're not dead, but way more lives that you're tinkering with.
Yeah.
So,
for example, Iraq.
That lie.
Yeah. Okay.
Different scales.
Okay. So, I think we'd all agree Tony Blair had to have his license revoked. It might be a little bit late now, but maybe he shouldn't be the Middle East peace envoy. Okay, Rodri.
Yeah. Okay. One thing in response to that, someone's lying. But are they just getting overexcited and misinformed? Like, say, for instance, Tony Blair, Margaret Thatcher, all of these people who enacted massive policies. I agree. But in the sense that
were they acting in good faith? Is that what you're saying?
Acting in good faith, does it limit free speech if you decide to punish everybody for their mistakes? And second of all, with these kind of schemes, any kind of scheme, any kind of thing where we want to hold people to account, fundamentally you implement it, people can flaunt those rules. If you say, like, I don't want to be, no, I'm not going to be unelected, like when people don't leave their position after massive public pressure, how do you get them to do what you want? How do the police get us to do what they want? How does the government get us to do what they want? Violence.
Violence. So violence is the answer as far as Rodri is concerned. Just one, what's your name again?
Claire, hello.
Claire and Ginny, it's right, isn't it? See, I do listen. Do say something because we're about to wrap this up. We're gonna be driving this into the hillside very shortly. So now's the time to speak, or forever hold your peace. Go on.
On the mistakes one, the good faith thing, it would be nice if everything that was acted on in good faith was taken with some sensitivity, but it's not. If you speed by accident, you still get points on your license. If you're a doctor and you make a mistake, but it's a catastrophic mistake.
You cut out the wrong liver.
So this is how
it's kidney, in fact. You can't cut out the wrong liver. Yeah.
But it's
actually, yesterday we were talking about having
having
3 livers. Yeah. So even if you don't know what you're doing, if you're that negligent that you're negligent, basically. Yeah. Yeah, it's whether you intended it or not.
Well, I was thinking, so I had a bailiff come to my house the other day, which was horrible, but it wasn't actually my fault. But he had a video camera thing, and so this whole thing, everything is filmed as documentation. So maybe it would be to do with how, if they've said something that's televised to however many people have viewed it, however many times they say that, compared to them actually voting against that thing that they've said they were going to do, that's a blatant lie. So if they say to everybody, "Oh, I'm going to do this thing," and then you work out how many amount of people have seen it and how many times they've said it versus an actual like movement they've made in court. Then that. Margot's gone to eat. But yeah, that would be the actual naughty. Then you have a point because it's clear.
Okay, so basically calculated a bit like libel law. Actually, it's calculated on the number of people that you've offended and the number of people that you've hurt. And
It's through filming, because everybody uses film evidence for everything now.
Okay. We can use this evidence now. We're filming this. Claire.
But the thing is, like, you had Boris Johnson on that Andrew O'Neill show.
Yeah.
There's the bus with the £350 million. He stood there and he's going, that's not true, is it? Or it was Nigel Farage or somebody like that.
Yeah.
So it makes no difference. I think the problem is people just have such apathy and have low expectations of politicians as it is. They just let them get away with things. But I do think, as a politician, I wouldn't want to be a politician because the amount of compromise you have to do to get anybody to do anything.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of, you can't just have these direct measures because it just won't work.
Okay. All right. Bob, we've got about 5 or 10 minutes left, so now's the time of the whole session. Then we're going to put this in the van, and that's it.
You made it.
You made it in under the wire, Arthur.
Going on to the license about politicians.
Should politicians have a license? That's what we're talking about at the moment. Should they get points off their license for lying, cheating, etc.?
What if, like, Theresa May or someone else got like all their points. All of their points taken off? What would happen to their what would happen to their what they are trying to get people to vote for? What would happen to that? I'm just wondering.
You mean their policies or what? Okay, and that's directed at you for some reason because I guess you proposed the idea. How's this actually going to work?
Well, in my 4-point plan,
you better get this right, otherwise you're going to get punished and strung up and the rest of it. And Rodri's going to be violent to you.
I mean, every prime minister and leader has a party behind them, so I guess if you lose your license to be the prime minister or whatever, then you can leave it to, even if that's not working in this current situation we're in, you can leave it to your party to vote on and enact the policies that you had going. I don't know.
Okay.
But it's just about accountability and agency and that sort of thing.
So people, it's not necessarily about how that person would be removed, but more about their actual changing their behaviour. That's what we're trying to do, I suppose, is change politicians' behaviour, make them more honest, more accountable, just nicer people.
Give it to. Oh yeah. Get a respond or no? Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I was going to kind of go all.
Give us a final thought.
All general and preachy, I suppose.
Go on then. That's what we want. Because
that's cool. Yeah.
Now is the time. We need closure. We need a conclusion. We need that's what we need here. Is actually a sense of okay, we've done that. We've sorted out this problem. Let's all go home and drink beers.
Robots nice.
Robots go to sleep. Robots do actually dream of robot sheep going round and round.
He's right.
Yeah. Fair enough.
It just seems like with all of our discussions, with all of the solutions that we propose, we kind of expect politicians to always be honest, to always be in a position where they can make a good decision, always have the information, and to be able to be held accountable to these kinds of things. And yet, at the same time, we say, okay, we should have concessions for people with mental health issues. We should have concessions for people from traumatic backgrounds, from disadvantaged backgrounds. Everyone is everything some of the time. Politicians will be weak some of the time, they'll be strong some of the time, they'll have the right ideas some of the time, they'll have the wrong ideas some of the time. But we expect them to have this archetype of the leader all of the time. Okay. And we expect the citizen to have the archetype of the engaged, informed citizen all of the time. Okay. And this whole society expects us to keep one role throughout our life: the father, the provider, the mother, the nurturer, the blacksmith or whatever. Yeah. But everybody is everything some of the time. And I'm violent some of the time, and I'm a pacifist some of the time, and I'm a musician some of the time.
Hopefully we've got you in pacifist mode.
I hope so.
Because there's 2 rules in Talkaoke: no fighting and no singing. Okay. So hopefully you're not in the.
But essentially, we're all very idealistic at the moment. But really, I think what needs to happen is just an admission that everybody is human. Everybody's unique, but everybody suffers and gives shit.
We're all flawed and a bit rubbish. Okay. Except, Ginny. Oh, she's gone. There we go. That was too long for that. To get Ginny's final thought. Yeah.
What would happen to the Prime Minister's job? What would happen to them? Where would they go? Would they still be?
You're talking about the Prime Minister that got sacked because they got too many points on their licence?
I mean, like, what?
What happened to that person? Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, like, will they still be able to help their campaign, like, go on and try, or will they, like, have to stop?
Maybe they'll be suspended for a second. We're talking about, should politicians have, like, a licence that can be revoked every time they lie or cheat or make something? Is that off? Is that your final thought? Okay, and that's where we are. Maybe it's just time to get final thoughts from everybody. Yep. Has to happen at some time. We spent about 2.5 hours talking about death and the inevitability of the end, and now it's come. So we should be prepared ourselves conversationally. Although I have to say, only about 3 of the people were here then. Yeah, that including you. Oh, yeah, go, yeah. Whoa.
All the talk about politicians and stuff, then we haven't actually talked about things that are influencing them and that are corrupting them. You've got big business and multi-billion-dollar industries, you've got religions, you've got all sorts of things that are exerting a lot of influence.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about that.
Supernormal be a corrupt influence on politicians?
Exactly.
Why can't we be a corrupt influence?
It's all the tech guys going to Burning Man again.
Oh, you can see how the world would change. Can you imagine how the festival would have changed if it had years of politicians? Yeah. How many people would come simply because it would influence? Oh.
Yeah, so it would change everything. Okay, so maybe it's the fact we're not influencing anybody that we can have this conversation.
I think the things that are influencing politicians aren't just politics or religion or mass media or corporations. It's instinct. It's the need to survive. That need to survive is inherently corruptive. It does corrupt.
Okay, so it's a kind of instinct, a more survival, animalistic kind of response that's going on.
Politicians to survive as politicians.
Well,
as humans.
Okay. Yeah, they're just being human there, but they're on their survival mode. Okay, let's get some final thoughts. Final thoughts on this side.
Give me a second.
Okay, so everyone always wants to have the last round.
It's kind of touching on exactly this. It's like because survival is such a big deal, by having less hierarchical pyramid-type structures, you kind of mitigate that survival instinct because everyone en masse wants to survive, but their individual interpretation that will be slightly different, so it might mitigate that. But that would solve a load of problems and will never happen.
What do you actually mean by that?
Anarchy. But the genuine sense of anarchy, not the kind of crazy things going bad anarchy.
What? Yeah. Anarchy, what does that really mean? The genuine...
A-hierarchical emergent systems.
Okay. Okay.
Everyone needs to be impossibly educated for that to happen. Like, the problem is that no one...
Yeah.
Exactly. No one is allowed to fail. No one is allowed to be wrong.
Right.
What society on this planet allows people to make mistakes.
Can you have an anarchist society that allows failure?
Exactly, that's the question. I think so, and you should be able to, because it should, at the base, have a like the human condition as its centre and an understanding of that.
Okay.
Don't know.
Would the human condition change in an anarchist world, or would it be the same human condition? Anyway, but that's for next year's Talkaoke. Or you could come to Summer Night Lights in Vange in Basildon on the 26th of August. If you want to, or the 31st of August, you can come to our studio. You can just check our website for the upcoming events. Final thoughts? Claire, have you got a final thought? Are you an anarchist?
No.
Would you like to be an anarchist?
No.
No? Do you like it as it is?
That's too complicated a question.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's another one for Summer Night Lights fans.
Okay. For final thought, it's just that I'm only ever accountable for myself fully, but I think that should be something that is encouraged as a higher sense of just personal moral accountability is the thing that we need to implement more.
How do we do that?
Psychedelics.
I mean, maybe, but I don't know. I mean, I think it just comes down to a certain less rhetorical education and a certain emphasis towards moral consideration as opposed to survival efficiency.
Okay, I'm interested in this idea. Although it's another one for the Basildon gig, I think. The psychedelics actually make somebody more moral and more considerate. No, not psychedelics. Once again, 6 p.m. Basildon, Swan Mead Park in Vange in Basildon. Do come.
How many days? Is it 2 days?
No, it's just the one. It's just the one night. It's the 26th of August. That's our next gig. But you can also come to Aberfeldy Street in Poplar, where we're doing a gig 31st of August. Poplar is in East London. It's the mouth of the Blackwall Tunnel, just at the
It's just behind Canary Wharf.
Okay, so you know the area, so you can come. 31st of August. Any final thoughts? George, have you got anything?
Not really, but I've very much enjoyed chatting to people here and like all different. I know.
Yes, everyone.
But like,
yeah.
I know that's really cheesy, but just the thing of like, for example, having like Arthur, I don't know if he's like 10, and then like an older gentleman, and like it just seems like such a nice mix. And, I just really enjoyed it. Sorry, that's so wanky, but
no, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's one for the testimonial video. Don't worry about that. Bob, have you got a final thought?
Well, all I can say is that I think that Talkaoke is a wonderful thing, and I wish there was more of it. That's it.
Okay. Yeah. All you need to do is phone us up and book us. Basically, we can do it. We've got Rohan, we've got Margot, we've got a whole host of people that couldn't make it this time, but we can do it. We would just drive to a town and shopping centre near you. Yeah.
Or a field.
Yep. How long have you been working in this field?
2 days.
Yeah. That I finally got that one in, but Right, okay, we'll end it there. Thanks very much. This has been Talkaoke. We'll see you next year.
Good job, Mikey.